Good morning, everyone. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. These will remain the most significant weapons in the retail battle. Whether it's driving sales with recommendations and personalization, driving efficiency with robots or sensors, or offering new ways to shop and manage stores. AI is touching every part of the retail industry. The disruptive impact of AI in retail is seen across the value chain and is emerging as a powerful tool for retail brands to gain a strategic advantage over their competition. Global retailer spend on AI will reach 7.3 billion annually by 2022, according to Juniper Research, up from 2 billion in 2018. This discussion holds even more importance in the post-pandemic era as retail has never been under more pressure. This tension comes from the increased expectations of the empowered customer and the need to have accurate forecasting and inventory in order to deliver goods at a time and location that is convenient for the consumer, all while delivering high operational efficiency and ROI. Let's learn from the experts on what changes AI is bringing upon in the retail industry. It's my pleasure to introduce some of these experts. We'll begin with Mr. Ranjan Kumar. We also have a serial entrepreneur, Ranjan Kumar, CEO, Entropic Technologies, an emotion AI company that helps brands measure the cognitive and emotional response of consumers towards product experiences, media campaigns, and brand content. Entropic, with more than 80 enterprise customers, counts Procter & Gamble, Barclays, Maersk, Accenture, Target, among other clients. Next, we have entrepreneur, author, and leadership coach, Jaspreet Bindra. Jaspreet is the Chief Technology Whisperer, Findability Sciences, an advisory firm in the exciting new areas of enterprise AI solutions for digital transformation. His digital transformation experience spans across agri-tech, real estate, next-gen social networks, hospitality, auto, and financial services. Finally, we have Ashwini Ashokan, founder and CEO, View.ai. After a decade in Silicon Valley, Ashwini started parent company Mad Street Den with the aim of bringing computer vision technology from science labs into the hands of people. Today, her AI platform powers retailers and online marketplaces, including Mercado Libre in Latin America, Zilingo in Southeast Asia, and other companies in North America, the Middle East, and Japan, as well as at home in India. Welcome, Ranjan, Jaspreet, and Ashwini. Really happy and honored to have you at Converge at Walmart.
Thank you very much, Mayur. Great to be here, and fantastic to be with Ranjan and Ashwini.
Thank you.
Guys, happy to be here, folks.
Same here, guys. Pleasure to be in this call.
Great. Thank you so much, guys, once again. And I know we have a very short time here, so let's jump straight into the questions, if you don't mind. So the first question, and you can take it in any order. I might just ask you guys around. What technologies and solutions are used for AI in retail? What are the most essential present and future use cases? So perhaps maybe each one of you could borrow from your experiences and maybe discuss a use case of what you find as one of the most interesting applications of AI in retail today. Ranjan, maybe we could start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Mayur, for that question. I think retail has come of that age where it is really competing for the experience that it is trying to deliver. And one of the greatest use cases that I see is that shopping is an experience and how AI can play a role into making things a lot more hyper-personalized. So that's something really coming off the edge, and I see a great potential over there, and a lot of things actually building in that way, where shopping is what you're shopping in a retail store and what you're shopping online is no more two different means, and there's a unified way to understand what a customer really wants and what their preferences and what their likings are. So AI has a huge role to play in terms of getting this cohesive, comprehensive understanding and deliver a seamless experience. So I think customer experience is a great space where AI has a great role to play in upcoming days.
You talked about customer experience and hyper-personalization. Perhaps maybe you could give us an example of any one of these that you've had an experience with.
Sure. So some of the things that we work with is in optimizing the product experience and path to purchase journey for customers. And not just their rational experience, but their emotional experience and understanding that. Now, in a retail store, now the cameras are available and you can actually understand facial expression of the user, where exactly user is looking at, which aisles are going to work, which aisles are not going to work, where they're noticing, what they're not noticing. Likewise, you have an understanding of the kind of product packages that a customer with their history is preferring to actually going and purchase, right? So there's historical data and there's a real-time stream data that is coming in store. And bringing these two together, there's an immense power in the way things can be recommended and offered to a customer, making their guided decision making towards purchase simple and effective. So I believe that's just an example which I've seen.
Great.
Picked up.
Perfect. Thanks. Ashwini, over to you. What would you characterize, or give us an example of where you've seen AI in retail, perhaps with an example?
I think, I'll answer that a little differently than talking about a singular use case here. I think AI has the opportunity to bring retail into a digital era. I think retail has been traditionally very offline, not so taking a lot longer to digitize than a lot of other industries. And I think what we're seeing in the market with AI right now and with the with retailers is that everybody is adopting AI as almost like a function of, you don't have a choice. You've got to go online, you've got to become digital. And I think that is the most interesting thing that's happening right now with retail, is that everybody's realizing that it's not enough to just get data. You've got to make sense of that data and actually use it and automate end to end, right? So the idea of automating all processes across the retail value chain, I think, is the most interesting thing that AI can do. And that really means cleaning up data, cleaning up the catalogs, automatically tagging it, creating all the data surrounding it, allowing that to be discovered the right way by the right people in the right channel, right? And be able to automate that entire cycle of inventory, getting inventory, managing inventory, getting customers, managing customers, and then keeping that loop going, right? I think that is the most exciting thing that's happening in AI right now.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with you, because we've seen something very similar happen at Flipkart as well. Optimizing the entire value chain, not just one specific part. So very well said there. Jaspreet, what are your thoughts on how AI is being used in retail today?
Thank you, Mayur. Both Ranjan and Ashwini did talk about a lot of the applications for AI in retail. More than anything else, actually, over the past many years, retail has been in the forefront of experimenting, essentially because they've got lots of data, as opposed to some of the others who do not. The difference, however, is that for many years, it was about using technologies to figure out what happened. Okay, so it was a lot more analytics, etc., on the data, which on stuff which had already happened. I think the transition to what will happen and then what to do about that, so is really where the transition is happening. And therefore, this move from classical analytics to classical AI in some sense. What has and a bunch of technologies have been used, the typical machine learning technologies, computer vision in certain places, robotics in certain places, NLP in natural language processing in a few other places. But I think what has been interesting is that there's been a bit of an inflection point because of, obviously, the COVID pandemic. And the COVID pandemic, as I'm fond of saying, there's this COVID paradox, which is that COVID has slowed down the world, but it has accelerated change. And one of the places where it has accelerated change, probably the most, is the retail sector, because it was so affected and so impacted by COVID. So if I was to just pick on two use cases very quickly, which we have seen around the world, one of them is very common, which is where, the whole deal of curbside pickup, at retail. And therefore, well, curbside pickup is not technology, but then how do you use technology to make curbside pickup and therefore the customer experience around it much more smoother and faster and happening at scale? And that's where some of these technologies have come in. The other interesting, slightly different one is something which we've seen with SoftBank in Japan, the telco SoftBank, the telecom company SoftBank, and which does a lot of Wi-Fi as well as obviously has a telecom network. In Japan, as in many other places around the world, when you walk past small retail, there are actually people kind of standing outside, giving flyers, cowling you inside the shop, which with COVID has suddenly become not possible, because of the whole distancing thing. And so how do you use traditional location technologies to, okay, fine, someone is passing by the shop with a SoftBank phone, but then also predict real time based on Wi-Fi telecom data and some shopping data as to what is the probability that this person can walk into a shop, and therefore which one to target from within that. It's a very interesting use case which is kind of being trialed right now. And I just wanted to highlight that, saying that, look, it's not just AI ML in that sense. How do you use it with a bunch of other technologies to make interesting use cases happen? So I will kind of stop here in terms of your question right now, but I think there's a lot of interesting things which can happen in retail.
Interesting. Very quite fascinated to hear about the Japanese use case that you talked about. So, I resonated a lot with everything that you guys have said. But one of the things that Ashwini said is about how you use your data, right? How do you make sure that there are no errors in it and it's actually put to use, right? So let me take that as a second question, and maybe we'll start with Ashwini this time. What does it take for a business to be AI ready? How do you get the most out of your data, your infrastructure, your talent, and so on, right? Ashwini, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much spend day in and day out. I mean, it's kind of our bread and butter at this point, and we're beginning to see such a difference between 2 years ago and today, right? 2 years ago, we had to go out there and kind of do a little bit of product marketing education to help understand, here's how you can organize your catalog. Like you can automatically, tag all these things, right? And the more tags you have, the more discoverable they are, and the more relevant the tags they are. Let's just say, New York Fashion Week happened, and you all of a sudden have a theme called Urban Jungle, and people are all looking for Urban Jungle. Are your products tagged as Urban Jungle? And every year you have new words, new categories, new colors, which trend on all kinds of social channels, and discoverability is huge, but it's tied to your catalog data, right? So how do you automate and create catalog data? And 99.99% of the retailers that we work with globally, and we work with a lot of really massive folks, right, who have millions and millions of items in their catalog. The number one thing we typically end up seeing is that there's no data, right? Like, and the data that's there is broken. You can go to the site and search for a skirt or search for almond flour, and you're going to see something completely different, right? And that's a lot of money being left at the table in terms of just not allowing your products to be discovered. So that's one example, right? Like in terms of fix the catalog data, right? The other part of it is customer data. We talk about this a lot with the folks we work with as well, which is, everybody knows about big data. I think the move to big data over the last decade, that's really what the focus was in the last decade, is enabling people to collect data. But the biggest thing that we discover is that, there's probably 1% of that data actually being used. And being connected, right? It's not enough if you sit on customer data. You have to generate data by connecting your customer data with your inventory data, with other contextual data, right? So
yeah.
The story, and this is really what AI is about at the end of the day. It's about making sure that you can create data, you can clean data, you can use data, and you can do it in contextually aware, intelligent ways where, when someone wants something, it's there at that time without even asking for it, or we talk about very specific examples. This even extends to things like, let's just say in grocery, I'm on a site and I'm looking at, my first click is almond flour. Okay, my second click is, let's say, almond milk, and my third click is, say, almonds, right? But if you're having something very similar, your first click is almond flour, but your second click is maybe keto bars, okay, and your third click is soy milk. Algorithms can say you're looking for keto items, but I'm probably baking an almond flour cake, right? And that level of intelligence, all this stuff is doable today, right? But it goes back to, is your data ready? Is your staff organized? Is this possible, right? So that's broadly a set of examples there.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. I think a lot of attention, particularly in media and all that, goes to some of the latest and greatest technologies and so on and so forth, right? When the reality is that as exciting as that is, it's really the the discipline and the simple things that get you most of the way. And I think you highlighted that very well. Thank you so much. Ranjan, your thoughts based on the customers that you meet up with. how are they getting AI ready, and what advice do you have for them?
So Ashwini very well captured the sense of it. Essentially, AI is means to outcome, right? And the goal is to solve a problem. And let's say in case of ours, it's what we hear is the whole customer experience. Now, for organizations to be really AI ready, it means that first you should have your mechanism and strategy of data collection in place, and second you should have a collective understanding of making sense out of it. And for these two things, for making a sense out of it, it is more of first principle understanding, which I have seen sort of makes them a lot more ready for AI to be meaningful for them. And there's a lot of this intelligence that are there with organization people who are working in an offline way. How do you actually have this all in a strategy which allows your data to bring more sense and value to you? So connected data and a hypothesis or a philosophy of how all this data is going to work together to make sense for a business problem. If these two steps are well covered, tech is a means to outcome, and you usually will get results. I think massive amount of acceleration has happened in the first part where data collection is happening, and most of the guys are now up with that. The second part, I still see that that sort of is a challenge for a lot of organizations. How do I make a lot of sense out of this data with all the collective intelligence we have? So I think that's a step where more than technology, how your processes functions and what it means for your business is super important. So that's something to be taken away as such.
Great, thanks. Jaspreet, your comments on this topic in terms of, the data readiness, AI readiness of organizations, and how do you get that?
Thanks, Mayur. And again, Ranjan and Ashwini covered this in great detail. I think one of the things about AI is that every organization we go to, the CEO says, I want to do AI. It's the, they used to want to do e-commerce a while back. Somewhere in the middle, they wanted to do blockchain. Now everyone wants to do AI. Okay, because AI is nice, it's sexy. But there's this whole non-sexy part of AI, which derails most of the conversations going further, which is what we have been talking about. The how do you make that organization AI ready? AI is the algorithm part is really the last thing, in the line or the one before last. So in findability, where we work with a whole lot of legacy firms, as opposed to new age firms like yours, Flipkart, etc., it's even more difficult. Because they're not cloud born or digital born, they are kind of born of a different era, and their understanding is. And so a very simplistic model in the sense that we use is what we call the CUP model, CUPP. So 2 P's instead of 1 P. The C stands for collection, and that is we talked about how you kind of collect not only the structured data but also the unstructured data. Okay? And it takes a lot of time, as you know, because structured data is lying in different containers in your organization. Sometimes it's not even lying there, or it's not digitized, etc., etc. And for that, there's usually a data audit that we recommend. Okay, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very clunky, very difficult, very hardcore work. But there's the collection part. The second, which is very difficult, is the unification part. Again, it was referred to. And I think it's fairly self-evident what unification means, but then how are you kind of unifying the same data, same field, same across different containers, across different sources, etc. The third is the processing. And that's where the AI-ish thing, which is actually the algorithm in that sense, and therefore, which algorithms, etc. And then the last is the last P, which is the visualization of the data. And how are you kind of showing it, and therefore how do you get insights out of it? And so the entire CUPP model, in a sense, is how we try and get the data part and the AI part done. And the other thing to remember is that, look, at the end of it, we are trying to help a business, not trying to get 3% more accuracy than what was there earlier. Okay, and so 3 things, and the other triangle, which is very important, okay, is the data, the algorithm, and the process. Most of us tend to focus on the algorithm, but most of us know that, look, there's only an incremental much more we can do on the decades work which has already happened on the finite number of algorithms which exist, especially in machine learning. Okay, but it's really the data part and the quality and the quantity. which is going to make stuff happen. And then finally is the process. I mean, what use case are we working towards rather than just an accuracy? And so if you take the combination of the cup model, the collection, unification, processing, and presentation, and then kind of think of the strategic triangle in a sense, is how at least we approach companies to become AI ready.
Perfect. No, actually, I think I'm pretty sure we can have an entire conference, if not an entire hour, discussing about this really important aspect. But I don't think we have enough time. So I'm going to jump a topic here and maybe talk about something interesting for our viewers, right? Because this is a hard topic, what we were talking so far, right? And there is no easy solution or a silver bullet, right? So let me ask this question just to Jaspreet. How is AI blurring the lines between in-store retail and e-commerce? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, and a lot of your clients, you said, are traditionally in-store clients. So, what is your view on how are these lines being blurred? How is the seamless experience? If are retailers able to do that, where you walk into a store, you do something there, and then when you go online for the same brand or same store, you get to see something related to what you've seen before. How are these lines getting blurred?
So the jargon used for what you said, Mayur, is omni-channel retail, right? As to how you kind of blur the lines, as you said, between physical and online retail. And actually, the way to think about it is that how do you blur the boundaries between the offline and online experience rather than offline and online retail in that sense? In my experience, both with findability and otherwise, I do believe that it's one of the hardest problems that at least I have seen, okay, which we're trying to solve. And frankly, it's not only AI or associated technologies around AI which will help doing that. There's a bunch of other things which go into it. And most times what goes into it is actually how the company culture is going to transform to make this blurring happen. However, I will not get into the culture part of it because that's another discussion, okay, for another day. But couple of things here. Most of the offline retailers are now looking either at omnichannel and technologies to make that happen, or D2C, which is a direct to customer kind of a business model. Actually, what we have seen is that most traditional, and I'll approach this from the traditional retailer standpoint. Perhaps Ashwini and Ranjan can talk more from the e-commerce standpoint. But most traditional retailers are actually a lot much more focused on D2C now than they are actually on classical omni-channel in that sense. And in the whole D2C part, basically, suddenly they are confronted with this that they don't need to now look at data which emanates from their distributors or from their channel, but they have to now look at the end customer. And one of the ways to do that is e-commerce, okay, which is easier to do. What is more difficult to do is that how do you capture physical data related to physical walk-ins in retail? And this is where, going beyond AI, ML to sensor-based technology, okay, camera-based, vision-based technology is where some of the experiments are happening. I, at least in my work, have not seen or personally worked on a use case which kind of blurs the boundaries very effectively, the various POCs, and I think what people are actually moving towards or want to move towards is the Amazon Go kind of experience. Okay, where you walk into a store and you're not paying, and you just kind of everything is being monitored. But we realize how difficult it has been even for Amazon to do something like Go. Okay, and so therefore how difficult it will be to do for other. We are aware that some of the bigger tech companies, Microsoft, for example, and some of the others are working on these technologies to enable this blurring to happen. And it is something which all retailers actually come to us for. But I do believe that it's, we kind of little chinks are happening, kind of hammering away a little bit at the problem from different edges.
Yep.
But at least in my experience, and I would love to know from Ashwini and Ranjan or you, if we have seen this effectively happen for someone who's approached this from a traditional retailer perspective rather than approach this from an e-commerce perspective, also getting into traditional retail.
So wonderful, actually. I mean, you talked a lot about how the data capture of the customers that happens so easily in an online world, right, is so much harder in an offline world. And you said that we are making very slow progress towards it, right? And it's a tough problem. Actually, let me flip it around, right? When a lot of us grew up in India, and I remember walking into small or medium stores. The moment I walked into the store with my parents, somebody handheld us, right? There was an assistant who took us through and said, okay, what do you want, sir? What can I show you? Is this in the price range? And that person was there to answer any and every question that we had. Now I'm asking that experience, that offline experience, how closely can we get that in the online world? A virtual assistant who can handhold you throughout your funnel, right from discovery to checkout and so on and so forth, right? And perhaps Ranjan and Ashwini can tell us about how they have seen their clients build such virtual assistants so as to, like I said, give that offline experience in the online world. Maybe we can start with Ashwini. Ashwini, have you seen that done successfully? And how do companies go about it?
People are trying. I can tell you that much. Has anyone done it successfully? I am not so sure about that, honestly. But everybody's trying, right? I think the hard part, and I have a slightly different view on this one, right? Which I actually think if you see what is happening in the US, if you see what's happening even in China for that matter, right? Experiential retail is everything. People are coming into a Nike store or a, any of those beauty cosmetic stores for the feeling of being in a place that's been designed almost like it's like a kid in a candy store, right? Like it feels like it's exciting, it's experiential, it's almost like going to either a museum or like some kind of a place where you have some really fun experiences. It's hardly about the shopping. The shopping is almost like a feature. The product is a feature. The product is not the main part of the shopping thing. And I think my take on this, on where things are headed, is that there are a lot of people trying to bring in this whole Amazon Go model stuff offline. For those kinds of models to work, you need scale. Like it has to validate the investment, right? It makes sense for an Amazon Go. It makes sense for a hypermarket. It makes sense for companies that are all about scale. It doesn't make sense for a lot of others that are not about, that are already not so incredibly profitable in specific ways, right? So what we are seeing, working with our customers, we're seeing a lot of emphasis on this whole, flagship store, right? Which is all about that experience. So you just pick up the most prime real estate, make it really exciting, get people to come in, have fun, and on their way out, you get the product, right? The product is literally a bit of an afterthought in that situation. And I think that is where we're seeing physical retail headed. What we are working with a lot of these companies who have figured that part of it out is to say, connecting offline data or online data is exactly like the last set of conversations we've had. It's an ugly thing, right? Like it's the dirty work, connecting offline to online data. It's not glamorous, but it's simple stuff in the background that you can do to have maximum ROI, right? In terms of making sure you're on top of, the right customer experiences at the right time. So that's not so much of a big deal. And in terms of assistance, I think what we are seeing, and we've been working with a lot of folks, is people are trying to basically take similar engines online and put it onto iPads and different types of, digital devices in store, right? To enable people, you're seeing these touch displays and stuff come up. But is it working? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's not yet working. I think the experiential retail part of the story of the offline world is working better. And I'm going to say it's probably going to take another 5 years for us. I mean, Hudson Yards in New York was supposed to be the answer to new retail, right? And then COVID happened and look where we are, right? So I think it's going to take another 5-6 years before we start to see any progress, I think, in physical retail. I do think that the emphasis is going to be online for the most part.
Great. No, I think, my next question was going to be about COVID. Like you said, I completely agree with you about the experience when you walked into some of these stores, right? Particularly in US, that's where my personal experience has been. But like you said, COVID has set us back, right? And So, is that going to be a norm? Are we going to be completely out of COVID, or will something else come? We'll talk about it briefly. But before we get there, Ranjan, what are your thoughts about this question about, how are retails and brands trying to blur these offline and online lines? And how do you see that happening? Is it being successful? What's your take on it?
Sure. So I think that we are far from there for sure. Physical experience of, as you mentioned, that what was great about that experience when you walk in a store and there is someone to handhold you was that you as a customer was at the center of things. So I feel that consumer centricity in that sense, and looking at consumer at a center and rest everything being means to outcome is important. Probably larger organizations have a very strategic view on this and they are focusing on that. But there are a lot of small time retailers who are not able to deliver the same consistency of experience across different touch points. So people are doing online, offline in a little patchy way. So guys who are traditional retailers trying to put a couple of websites, which does not deliver the experience, the massive experience that they have delivered over the years. So the core question is essentially what it takes to deliver that kind of experience that they have been doing so far, and that we are trying to match in a digital world. So kind of companies are either physical retail first or digital retail first. What needs to probably happen is the approach of consumer first, and then you bring all the consistency of experience together. As Ashwini said, I think, it is little far from where things can be seamless and connected enough. I think we are still far from there.
Great, wonderful. So Ashwini, since you brought it up, I'm going to put you on the stand first. COVID, right? COVID happened. Brands are suffering. Offline stores are suffering, right? In your opinion, how can AI help brand and retail stores recapture some of their customers, get back some of their business, and deal with this reality, right? And how have you seen some of these stores that you talked about, right, which were giving this wonderful experience and people were enjoying, like you said, buying the product was almost like a feature out there, right? You went there for the experience and so on. And how are these guys coping with it, and how has AI helped them, or anyone else, not just stores like these, but in general, how is AI coming to the rescue for retail to deal with COVID?
Yeah, and I can give you a couple of examples, both from our own playbook as well as what we're seeing out there in the market. Our own playbook, for example, we launched our virtual dressing room this year and last year, right? The idea was photo studios are not available, models are not available. This whole process is gone right now. And we have AI that generates images of human models. So you don't actually have to do photo shoots anymore. You just have to give the catalog, and it gets generated on the model in different body types and different skin types with different kinds of looks and styles. So you can style the same t-shirt 5 different ways, the same jeans 5 different ways, and you don't have to really walk into a store, right? We're seeing a lot of this in the market right now. The biggest interest, the minute we launched that, it was almost like all my other product teams were like, how about giving us some money to talk about our stuff? Clearly, everybody seems to be going towards one thing. So clearly, in terms of a need, I think we're seeing a really interesting mix of there being an urgent need, but also the fact that nobody wants to buy off of a zero size model anymore, right? Like people want to look and experience, people are not delusional. Like not everybody is a zero sum model. Not everybody is like, a particular color skinned, and people are very conscious about this. And I think there is a conversation to be had about the shift in the consumer since the COVID as well. I think that's an incredibly important point, in that people are much more conscious about the choices they're making. People are very careful about the brands they want to be associated with, whether it's food, whether it's, beauty, whether it's wellness, it doesn't matter what category you're referring to. People are super conscious about the choices they're making today. So I feel like the biggest shift that we should be talking about from the last decade to this decade is It's not about discounting. You can throw as many discounts as you want at the shopper, in this era, and it's not going to work. It's all about the stories you say. It's all about your value. It's all about, what you're communicating through the features you have on your site, in your email, on your app, inside your store. And so, it's almost like all of these different channels for every one of these brands is a representation of their value systems. And that is where I think the consumer is today versus where they were, say, even 10 years ago. And, for us, the conversations we get to have with the retailers that we work with is typically around this, right? Are you putting that value forward with the feature that you have, right? A virtual dressing room where you have different body types, different skin types, absolutely acknowledges that, right? A grocery shopping, we were talking with literally one of the world's largest department stores out of Europe over the last year, where the conversation really was around people are coming to the website and buying grocery in a very habitual manner, right? You're coming to the same store to buy fashion, but you're also coming to the same website to buy grocery, right? But you're coming for fashion for very different reasons as opposed to grocery, which is like a habitual thing. You come there every single week, right? Which means you're replenishing your grocery every week, every 2 weeks. And it's almost ridiculous to not. And if you go into a store, you've got that guy, especially in these parts of the world, people know you, your little kit is sometimes even ready, or there's almost that little bit of a personalized feel, which is why you go to the store down the road. And we're beginning to recognize really, really massive companies trying to emulate that on their website, right? If I log in and I come to your website, why is my category page not sorted to basically have the things that I check out? Why is a goodie bag that's completely curated not already ready for me to just check out? You know what it is, which day it is, what I'm going to do. It's been 3 weeks since I replenished on my greens, right? So that is where we're seeing it's a very need-based emphasis that is aligned to the value systems of where the customer is. And I would say that's kind of where we've been seeing the most amount of traction.
Great examples. And I think I really like your narrative about how technology is also helping people overcome some of those biases that were there. And in that sense, COVID has helped us move in the right direction as well. Ranjan, I know your company deals with emotion understanding, right? If I walked into a store, of course, the proprietor could see me. He could see whether I'm happy about the product or not, right? And if I'm not, maybe he could show me different products and so on, right? As people are these days shopping online, tell us a little bit about how your technologies are helping your customers analyze those emotions and react to them, right? Like how they would have otherwise done in the offline world, or any other examples in terms of how technology is helping these retailers cope with COVID.
Sure. So the three things that we work on, there's digital experience, media experience, and shopper experience as an in-store. And across 3 touch points, you've seen that pandemic has substantially changed things. One of the most fundamental things that has happened is that the norms are broken. The behavior of customer has moved. Some of them are irreversible. Brand loyalties have big time shifted, and all the retailers are sort of coping with it, right? And where we have seen massive challenge for a lot of these brands and retailers is what they knew for last 20-25 years about a customer is changing. Customers' awareness about what to buy, what not to buy, what they want to see as the first thing on a product package, what they want to see first thing in their ads, what they want to see as the first thing as they walk into a website or a shopping cart. All those are fundamentally changing by various reasons and across various cohorts of userships. So what we have seen is retailers and brands coming to this reality that we got to recheck my consumer behavior in that sense, and can we really re-canvas it out that what that preference means now as compared to what it was prior, right? So that pre to post sort of transition is, I've seen that we work with P&G, and one of the challenges that they highlighted was that, the concept of 20% off is just not existing. There are 5 kinds of discount, 1 + 1, 10% off. What a user is noticing, we have something called as eye tracking. We do that for package designs. The most prominent thing that everyone is looking for is give me that health check any attribute around product. Look at brands who are coming up with saying, my product is natural, healthy, organic, versus saying that this is cool, which used to be a brand message for a lot of brands a while back. So the preference of customer, the way it is, it has changed for good or bad. That understanding is what is one of the foundational work technology is delivering to brands, and I believe that is going to shape into various means and various goals for businesses.
Oh, great, thanks. Jasprit, your comments on how AI is helping cope with COVID?
The interesting thing about COVID, there are many interesting things about COVID, but one of those was that many of us believe COVID to be this black swan event, right? That unpredictable, massively disruptive. The guy who wrote about black swans doesn't think it's a black swan event. Many more of such are going to happen. But what the black swan event actually was for retailers, for everyone else, were actually the lockdowns, not COVID. And the lockdowns were not predicted and obviously caused disruption. And the unfortunate fact is that lockdowns could happen for many reasons beyond COVID, the whole global warming stuff, etc. And so where I'm getting at is that, look, these kind of disruptions are going to be probably, unfortunately, the norm in a sense, rather than unexpected events. And so every industry, including retail, would need to start using human ingenuity plus technology to kind of start preparing for it. And I think three things there, which this particular lockdown taught us and taught every sector, including retail. Number one, automation. How you could use automation, because biological viruses still cannot hurt automation machines. And so I'm not going to get into automation because that's slightly different. But the other two things is, the second thing is that, look, most businesses, especially retail, and Ashwini was talking about the UK. I spent half my time out of the UK, and I know how much of a carnage it's been out there for the retail industry. Is that, look, you need to be as digital as possible. You can't be 100% digital. You're not a guy who could be 100%, but you have to be as digital as possible. People who were zero digital died. And the people who were 100% digital thrived. So it was like the classical anti-fragile thing. But so everyone is trying to move towards that. And AI is one of the tools, the parts in the tool set, which is helping people move towards that. But the third and the most important, and I think that's what Ashwini and Ranjan also kind of spent time on and alluded to, is that the customer journeys have changed. And what customers were looking for pre-COVID is not really what they're looking for now. It takes between 22 to 66 days to change a habit, they say, and this has lasted more than 400 days. And so, habits have changed.
Yep.
And the habits have changed vis-a-vis, safety, vis-a-vis crowding, vis-a-vis, and therefore my earlier example of curbside delivery, for example, and how that can, the virtual changing rooms that Ashwini was talking about, and I think are going to actually become the norm rather than just a temporary COVID, COVID tolerant mechanism in some sense. So, and so these new customer journeys in retail, in things equivalent to retail, like hospitality, for example, okay, are, I think, now permanent features. They are not just the immediate things. And for all of these things, automation, making business models as digital as possible, and this irrevocable change in customer journeys is where technologies like AI can play a massive part, and various examples have been given around that.
Fascinating discussion. Would have loved to go on even further, but unfortunately we are out of time. Thank you for all those great, insightful remarks, and it was a pleasure to host you.